Hi, thanks for joining us tonight. I'm going to lead us through a devotional, and then after we go through this devotional, we'll have a chance to share some prayer requests together. And you'll do that with the live chat, and you can find that either to the right of your video screen right now or below it. And if you go there, you are going to need to be logged in to a Google account or a YouTube account in order to chat. So you might want to take care of that right now, heading to the right or below the video to the chat area and logging in there. We're doing this, of course, because we can't get together as a church, so we're looking for creative ways to connect, and thought this might be a nice way to connect for me to give you some dinner time devotions and then give you an opportunity to share prayer requests. You'll be able to see the stream of prayer requests in that chat function, and we can pray for each other this way and at least connect like this. I also encourage you, as you saw in the liturgy Sunday morning, to think of people in church to call and give them a phone call and see how they're doing. This is what we have to do right now until we're able to be together again. What we're going to be doing on these Monday and Wednesday evenings is reading from the Psalms of Ascents. And if you want to open up to Psalm 120 in your Bible, you can follow along with me there. Psalm 120 is the first of these Psalms, and you'll notice right under the title of the Psalm, Psalm 120, is that description, a Psalm of Ascents. And there are a number of these, starting with Psalm 120, that are labeled this way. And that word ascents is related to the word ascend, as in like ascending up a mountain. And we think that the Israelites would have used these psalms to either to sing as prayers, to pray as they were heading to Jerusalem for the major festivals, or maybe as part of processionals in Jerusalem on the way to the temple as they were ascending to Mount Zion, to the temple, for the festivals there. And so I thought, hey, let's read through some of these and let's study them together, because in a certain way, we're like the Israelites. As a church, we're waiting for that time. We're looking forward to that time when we're going to be together again, worshiping God. And so these are the prayers of a people who are looking forward to worshiping God, just as we're looking forward to gathering together again in our worship space. And we're also looking forward to life returning to normal in some way again, and to life feeling safe again. So let's start with Psalm 120. I'll read the psalm and then point out a few things for our devotions this evening. Psalm 120, a psalm of ascents. I call on the Lord in my distress, and he answers me. Save me, Lord, from lying lips and from deceitful tongues. What will he do to you, and what more besides, you deceitful tongue? He will punish you with a warrior's sharp arrows, with burning coals of the broom bush. Woe to me that I dwell in Meshech, that I live among the tents of Kedar. Too long have I lived among those who hate peace. I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war. This psalm, I think, is good for us to think about the world that we're in. God's given us these words to pray, and in some ways what dominates this psalm is a description of what the world is like, the world that the Israelites were in as they looked forward to going to the temple and worshiping, and in some ways the world that we're in right now. This psalm draws our attention to, in fact, I want to point out three different ways in which the world is described. First, you'll notice in verses 3 and 4 that the theme of lies. What will he do to you? Or starting in verse 2, rather. Save me, Lord, from lying lips and from deceitful tongues. And what will he do to you? And what more besides, you deceitful tongue? The world that the Israelites lived in, the world that we live in, is in many ways a miserable place because of lies. And I'm not thinking right now about the lies you might hear, fake news or conspiracy theories or anything like that. What I mean is the lies that the lies about life that torment us in certain ways, the lies that we hear whispered in our minds, that steal hope from us, that steal our confidence from us, that steal our sense of safety from us. What are the lies that you're starting to believe in your mind? The lies that really bother you? Maybe there's a lie that you can't be safe in this world. With all the things that are going on, maybe what you're beginning to believe is that there's no way to be safe. Or maybe the lie that you're starting to believe in your mind, that's echoing in your mind, is the lie that your future is ruined and there's no hope for you because of all of the things that have happened, maybe to the economy so far, or the things that are going to happen to people's lives and even nearby, or to our economy going forward. Or maybe the lie that's being whispered in your mind is the lie that your life doesn't have any worth right now. Kids, maybe you feel like there's nothing to your life right now because you had such fun going to school and playing with your friends every day, and now you're just stuck at home, and it just feels like life is nothing. Those are some of the lies that might be tormenting us, that might be making this world kind of a miserable place, in the same way that the world was a place that the Israelites wanted to go from as they headed to Jerusalem to worship God. We're in this world, and this is why we want to be in the presence of God. The second way the psalm describes the world is with the two places it mentions in verse 5. Woe to me that I dwell in Meshech, that I live among the tents of Kedar. Now those two places seem to be places that were very far from Jerusalem on either side, actually. So they just represent being far from the presence of God, far from the place we want to be. And maybe this is something that you experience right now in the world, a sense of separation. I know when I look at the calendar and think about next month, think about this summer, one of the things that makes this world a difficult place to live in right now is I don't really know what the future holds or how long some of these restrictions are going to be in place, how long before we have a sense that we've rounded the corner in this pandemic, that life will soon return to normal. It seems like that could be a long ways away. It seems like we might be far from where we really want to be. Or maybe you feel separated in the sense that you're separated from, obviously, many people that you want to spend time with, and you're kind of stuck alone, and you feel like the distance between you and a friend, which used to be just a few mile drive, is now so much farther because you literally can't be with that person. In some ways, this is one of the ways the world is kind of a hard place to live in right now. We can feel separated from each other, even separated from the presence of God. And the third way this psalm describes the world that we're going from, that we're traveling from as we head into the presence of God, is in the last verses there. Too long have I lived among those who hate peace. I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war. So there's lies, there's separation, and finally there's war. War is this third way the psalm talks about the world. We're looking forward to being in the presence of God because we want to live in a world that is at peace. People are starting to talk about what our world is going through in the language of war right now, that we're at war surely with this virus, but we're also at war with the fear that is causing people to panic. We're at war with a lot of things. The world is not at peace. We don't have a military enemy this time like we have at other times when we've been at war, but we're certainly lacking the peace we need. And the roads might be quiet. You drive by shopping malls and schools and they're empty, but I don't know about you, when you see those things, it's not a sense of peace. It's a sense of an eerie quiet, a sense of abandonment, a sense that things are not right. And one day we want to be in a place where things are right again, in the presence of God. So, see, in these ways, our world is in fact a lot like the world that the psalm describes. I'm glad this is the first psalm in these Psalms of Ascents, because it really, I think, touches on some of the ways we're experiencing life right now. A world of lies that cause us to be afraid, a world of separation, a world without peace. But I want to end by directing your attention to that first verse again in the psalm. I call on the Lord in my distress, and he answers me. There's hope there. For the Israelites, to be in the temple was to be in the presence of God, in the truthful presence of God, the peaceful presence of God. And it might seem like the same is true for us, that if we really want to be out of this world that is filled with so much that's wrong, what we need is to finally be in the presence of God for eternity. And God wants to promise you that one day you will be, if you put your faith in Jesus, you're going to be in that place for eternity, that place of truth, that place of his presence, that place of peace. But we can experience some of that truth, some of that presence of God, some of that peace now. Let me read verse 1 again. I call on the Lord in my distress, and he answers me. in Hebrew, this is a really unbalanced verse. The first line is really long. It's almost like the prayer is muttering and mumbling as though the person is praying. I called on the Lord because everything was wrong and I didn't know what to do and I was panicked and it seemed like everything was falling apart and on and on and on. That's what the first line seems like. It's very long. And then the second line is just one word. And he answers me. That's just one word in Hebrew. It's like God is responding to our call by saying, answered. God is with us in truth. He's with us in his presence. He's with us in peace. And when we cry out to him, he wants to quickly and confidently assure us that our prayers are answered. That's the hope that I want you to see in Psalm 120 tonight. We're going to go into now a time of sharing prayer requests. And as I mentioned, you need to be logged in order to share these prayer requests. There's also a little bit of a delay. So go ahead and start sharing those prayer requests now in the chat feature. I know that there are some of you watching, so you should feel free to share some prayer requests. One thing that you're going to want to keep in mind is that this is public on the internet. Anybody can be watching this right now, and the chat will be left up there for some time. So I recommend that you just use first names and maybe a last initial or first name and a city. And then you also might want to write down these requests. They'll, of course, be preserved on the live stream. But my plan is, after we have a chance to share some prayer requests in the chat function, if there are some requests to share, then we can conclude the video, and we can each, wherever we are, go ahead and pray to God. So go ahead and share some requests. I know that, of course, we want to be praying for the world as we go through the situation that we're going through, as we go through this pandemic. We want to be praying for the people who are in leadership, the people who are making decisions in national governments, in our state governments, even locally. I want to be praying that they'll make the decisions they need to make. We also want to be praying for those who are treating people who are ill. Especially I'm thinking of places like Italy and perhaps in New York City now, where hospitals are getting overloaded by the people coming in. We want to pray for those who are right at the forefront, caring for people. I have a prayer request for Caitlin T. and her family as they mourn the passing of her dad, who died last week. It's a difficult time to have to say goodbye to someone because of the restrictions that we're under and the inability to gather in large groups, which is something that's so comforting, of course, when we're mourning someone's death. Got that prayer request? Anybody else have something that we should be praying about? I'll sit here for a while, but it might take you a minute to type it in too, and maybe you're sitting around the table right now and talking about how you're gonna say this. Go ahead and share a prayer request. I also know that there are Don and Maria B. in our church. Both of them in the past month have had procedures done, and they're recovering from those, and so we're going to keep them in our prayers. Yeah, I've got a prayer request here from Emily, prayers for all of the kids missing their friends. I know my kids are missing their friends right now. I'm trying to imagine what it would be like to suddenly, near the end of a school year, be told school is done and you don't get to play with your friends anymore. So technology is great, but there's nothing like wrestling with your friends on the playground or chasing after them, things like that. And so yeah, we'll keep the kids in our prayers. I see a prayer request here from O-Dog. School that we got to keep those who are trying to figure out how to have school start back again. We've got a family there that is going to be starting school again. And then prayers for all of the kids that are now being homeschooled as they keep up with their studies at home and as their parents try to figure out how to lead them through their work. We will we'll spend another minute or so gathering prayer requests, and then I will go ahead and close, and you can pray for these things. Now and then, just checking in, and I've gotten some calls from some of you, and I want to thank you for that. It's good to hear from people, but one of the questions that I think maybe you've asked people and you've had asked, and that I've asked people is, do you need anything? How are you doing? And so we can also keep in our prayers people who are lonely and people who are in need of things right now. And if you know of any needs, please feel free to let me know. Share them with our church, and we've got people who are standing by ready to help out those who need some help with something during this time. We've got prayers for Dana, who works in an ICU, and for all of the hospital workers. We'll keep them in our prayers. I think that's I got one more here. Everyone who's struggling with income and jobs since the economy is almost shut down during this time. Yeah, there's certainly been a lot of people who have lost their jobs. And especially without knowing what the future holds and without being able to very easily go and find new work since so many things are shut down. We've got a lot of needs in our community, and we'll pray for them also. We have a prayer request here for business owners making wise decisions, balancing the concerns of their business and the concerns for public health. The order from the state government, and I assume from state governments all over the country, and the shelter-in-place orders are long and detailed, but you start reading them and you find out it's often kind of vague, and it's not always clear exactly how many people for a business owner you need to bring in and when, and it's a hard balancing act to figure out how do we look out for the health of our neighbors and not put people at risk, and yet at the same time make sure that the work that God's called us to do in the world still gets done in some minimal way. Let's go ahead and close here. I want to encourage you to take this list. If you've been writing it down, you can use that, or you can take a look at the chat. We've got one more prayer there for that the elderly will stay healthy. Pray for the people who are most at risk. Go ahead, everybody, in your own homes, bow your heads and pray, and I look forward to seeing you Wednesday night. Thanks for joining me. This has been fun for me. I hope it's been rewarding for you.